Hello and welcome back. Flavor Friday on a Saturday. Today we are going to be going over the game in question. Specifically, we are going to be going over Flavor for the Sultanate of Delhi. Now, we've played a little bit of this game, so we will kind of inject our own opinions on some of the modifiers and these types of things as we go through this. And so, without further ado, let's get into the Tinto flavor that we have here. Tinto flavor number 8, which is being headed by Pavia. Of course, I think Pavia's done all the Tinto flavors. Hello and welcome to one more week of Tinto flavor. The happy Tuesdays and Fridays. And I know what you're thinking, and I thought this initially too, when we first went through this. I was thinking, hey Pavia, those are holidays, they should be capitalized. But then I forgot, of course, when you have a happy Tuesday, that's capitalized. When you have a happy Friday, that's capitalized. However, two capitalizations do make a lowercase. They cancel each other out because that's how math works. And so this becomes a lowercase letter again, and we have Pavia, of course, capitalizing correctly. In which we look at the content of Europa Universalis 5. Now, as some of you know, they used to call it Project Caesar, they used to call it Project Teaser, and if you pronounce it correctly, they used to call it Project Tizar, but we think this is yet another ruse, and this is just a trick, and that the name of the game is in fact different, and in fact, I think we know what the name of the game is. See, Europa Universalis 5, that's not a reasonable name for a game. That's obviously an anagram of Asia Unlove Uprivers, which is a much more sensible name for a game. And I know what you might be thinking, well, what's your evidence here? What do you think? The Yangtze and the Yellow River are both in this game, as is the Ganges. I rest my case, but let's continue on. Today we will be looking at the flavor content for the Sultanate of Delhi, the most powerful Indian country in 1337, but they got some issues. Indeed they do. But not without a few curveballs, that's right. So let's get started without further ado. Pavia, of course, never misuses without further ado. He always uses it properly, unlike a lot of YouTubers who say without further ado, a word from our sponsors. Which is the definition of a do, but unless that's performatively ironic, in which case that's hilarious, otherwise it's annoying. A series of swift and legendary conquests in the last century gave birth to the Great Sultanate, with territories under our jurisdiction that spanned from Deccan to the fertile fields of Lahore. None other has dared measure up to the prestige and status of our accomplishments. However, it became apparent that we overextended our authority. Womp womp. Everyone knows that this is actually just how empires collapse. They don't collapse from lack of strength. And this is something that basically never gets really done properly in games, in my opinion. They get collapsed under their own weight. And the ability to propagate information and control, as it were, as it relates to this game, which is, of course, Asia Unlove Uprivers, your ability to send information to the edges of the empire dictates your ability to respond to situations appropriately. And if there's too much leeway time, you just can't do it, and then you collapse. But that is nowadays difficult to control. There's control coming back. Our enemies are many, and they covet to undo our great heritage. To the east, our subjects in Bengal have started questioning their masters, while our southern territories have long disputed our hold over them. And the Hindu countries of southern India may further entrench their resistance to our rule, led by the rising power of, and I apologize for this and for all the words I'm about to mispronounce in this Tinto talk, Vijayanagar. Apologies. We trust the guidance of Sultan Muhammad, whose last name we will not mention because we will mispronounce it, whose watchful eye may safeguard our lands and prevent our downfall. Keyword is may. Huh? Yeah, that's a qualifying word. Now, let's take a look at our current situation here. Well, we can see that our number one population here is going to be Punjabi, and then Awadhi, and then Marathi. And, I'm wearing sunglasses, and also I'm blind, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't say any of those cultures. And so I'm pretty sure we have basically none of our free culture. And you might be like, well, journalist, why don't you take your sunglasses off? And it's not about how much you can read, it's about how good you look. So let's continue on, where we will see our primary religion, or the one that is present in our country, is Hinduism, 96%. And again, unless I'm blind, that doesn't say Hinduism. So what this is going to mean is that we are going to have really low satisfaction. We are going to be a very, very hotbed bed hot for rebellions. And so this is going to be, without any other additional flavor, which we are going to have, this is going to be already conducive towards having a difficult situation. As usual, all UI 2D and 3D are whip, which of course means work in progress. Now we see the Sultanate of Delhi, we see our lands here. We might take a bit of a dive into taking a look at these territories. I know there's a ton of rivers here. I don't know where exactly is Delhi, or sorry, it's not Delhi, it's Delhi, isn't it? I think it's located up here, so from a control perspective, might be better to be more central. I don't really know, but if we take a look here, we have a ton of subjects, and if we take a look here, we also have a ton of subjects. The starting situation of Delhi, there's a bug with the coloring of subjects, but Gower has the subject itself, Taraf. It, of course, is turtles all the way down, and not only is it turtles all the way down, it is actually the correct region for turtles all the way down. This is the starting government setup for the continent of Delhi, the other Indian Muslim sultanates as well. And so we haven't memorized what all these pictures mean, but we can see, to some extent, the satisfaction, right? And we can see the power, and we will see 50% satisfaction. That's not a problem. Umara has quite a bit of power, and they do have some flavor to come up and oppose us, so we might want to give other states privileges. We see the Ulama, who probably has the best satisfaction bonus, or one of the better ones. Probably the best bonus, I think it's research speed or literacy. We see they only have 6% satisfaction, so probably would like to give them some to increase their equilibrium and just juice up the flat amount that they have. Burghers at 25% with very little clout. I think in general they have the best privileges in terms of actually helping your country, and so while their bonus isn't that good, their privileges tend to be pretty good. And then we have the commoners, very little clout here, with a small amount of satisfaction. If I can't recall their bonus, I think that their state satisfaction might give you qualifications, which would be really good, except for Delhi has access to slavery, and so your ability to employ on RGOs is much better, which decreases the value of qualifications, but you can still promote to things other than laborers with the commoners, and so this will be a thing. And the Dhimmi are, of course, marginalized, so we don't get to include them in the picture because that's how we roll with our minorities. Okay. We continue on to the Indian Sultanate, where we are going to can build a Mamluk barracks, which is going to be a barracks that employs slaves and gives you an absolute ton of manpower. Monthly progress towards aristocracy, 10%, and this is a government reform, so it is occupying one of these slots up here. We see the Mamluk barracks in all of its glory. It requires 2,000 slaves to employ, can be built in either a town or a city, and we don't know what this third kind of requirement is in here. It requires or gives monthly manpower 25, can recruit regiments here, and of course it does require some amount of slaves, but you can enslave someone who's not your culture or your faith, and it might even be extend to heretical faiths, but it doesn't really matter because neither of those are all the pops in all of our nation, and so slavery will be really easy. We hate to see it. This is the era, though, isn't it? We also have the Talukwadar nobility, which is going to give noble estate satisfaction equilibrium 5%. I think the nobility generally has not a very good bonus, but it seems like a military bonus, and I think I'm probably bad at evaluating those. And we also have the tax collection of them, which is actually going to be quite strong, and a little bit of a bonus towards traditional economy. Traditional economy is not all that bad, so that's not too big a deal. If I recall correctly, you just kind of don't want to be close to zero. If you're super on trad economy, not a big deal. I believe it gives you bonuses to RGOs. RGOs are really good early on, and you could eventually transition to a capital economy. But taking a look at the tax collection thing that is unlocked here, we are going to see noble power plus 50%. Okay, and peasant estate satisfaction equilibrium. Now, we said that the peasant's bonus was going to give qualifications, but the real reason you like getting the estates pleased is because the pops that constitute the peasant estate, which is peasants, of course, and laborers, are enormous in terms of a percentage of your population. And what these guys do is they inform in locations the satisfaction. Satisfaction in location gives control and a bunch of other goodies, so peasant estate satisfaction to equilibrium is kind of just like free satisfaction for your entire nation. So this is quite strong. We see maximum tax for peasant estate, also pretty strong, and minimum tax for peasant estate, kind of irrelevant. because I think you tax them anyways, but it does remove the option. So you are going to be upsetting them to some degree by increasing the taxes, but in the runs I went through, it felt like you didn't want to tax the nobles or the clergy because you didn't make a lot of money, and you would just prefer the estate satisfaction, and you tax the burghers and the peasants. So this is fine for that. In fact, it is excellent. Here we have the Dharmic Dhimmi communities. These, of course, belong to the Dhimmi, which are... Oh, no, wait, this is a clergy one. Sorry, Dhimmi don't get representation in this Tinto talk. Shout out to being marginalized. We get tolerance of heathen beliefs, which is going to be +1, pop conversion speed -100%, and we get unrest -10%. A nice little thing, considering our entire population is heathen. That is just +1 tolerance. We get protected faith of the common people. This is belonging to the peasant estate. It's going to block all this conversion, which is a concession, right? Considering how much of our pop's not our primary religion. If the game in Flavour allows you to, probably the best approach is just generally speaking going to be swapping culture and religion here in terms of our overall strategy. But I assume you will not be allowed to do that as Delhi, which is swapped to just being Hindu and Indian. And this is going to actually be a pretty good privilege, I think, because 5% estate satisfaction, again, strong. And we don't really care too much about giving power to the common people because even when we give power to the common people, they have no power. Giving 20% on top of one, power is basically irrelevant. They have too small a base value on their power such that percentage modifiers are kind of irrelevant, but I suppose they're still better represented by the Dhimmi, who don't even get a place or a seat at the table. We don't show them off at all. Now, continuing on here, the last one already shown, but it's super important for Delhi starting up, as only 2% of his pops are Sunni, the state religion, as shown in the country selection screen. Yeah, we did notice that. Related to this, a tab we usually don't show, the Rebels one, but is also quite relevant to Delhi start. Also very relevant to the Mali start that we did kind of take a look at yesterday. But we do see the Ulema insurgents, Umara insurgents, Burgher insurgents, Gujarati patriots, Konkani patriots, Malvi patriots, and the Marwari patriots. And so, all in all, we see a lot of rebels brewing, and this is going to be a bit of a problem. And if they buff rebels, this might actually just be an incredibly difficult start. You're obviously huge, so if you can navigate your way out of the difficulties that presented to Delhi, especially if you can just swap your religion and culture, it's going to be an incredibly strong start. But it'll be exciting if trying not to implode is actually a bit of a task. We do start with a little bit of work of art. We are not aware of the culture because we are uncultured swine, so I've never heard of this work of art, but it is regionally renowned, so I guess that makes sense why I haven't heard of it. There are some unique advances here, which are beyond there just being loud cars outside, which of course advance down the road. We have a little bit of diplomatic reputation that is going to be helpful because one of our, not journal entry, but situations, or is it a disaster? Ooh, girl, you a disaster. No, you a situation. Is going to be important for us to gain reputation towards our, the neighboring people in order that they don't oppose us in our attempt to, recover and stabilize, because they can do that, and so the reputation will be nice. It is Age of Traditions, and so generally speaking, the tech that's available in Age of Traditions, a lot of it you already start with, and so this is a little bit of a freebie. If it's available in any other age, in that case, you are going to have to research it, and of course, some in the Age of Traditions you have to research as well. But technology, generally speaking, you have to remember that any sort of unique advance that a country gets is not free. It represents, when you research it, an opportunity cost in that you could have researched a different technology. There's plenty of technologies to research in the normal tree, and so if a tech is bad, getting it as a free advance just doesn't do anything, or getting it available to research it as an advance doesn't do anything because you don't research it. And so this is going to be something to keep in mind when evaluating unique advances, and we'll kind of texture things. You would rather have 10 really good advances than 20 medium advances, if that makes sense, because you give up something to research the medium ones. And, The 10 excellent ones are, of course, excellent. We see cultural tradition plus 33%. I think that's a rather large modifier, but it's escaping me right now how easy it is to get cultural percentage or cultural tradition percentage modifier. We see war score cost at minus 10%. I do think that's a strong one, and it's present for you for the entire game, going to make conquering easier. Turkic Conqueror, I almost thought it was boots, but it's roots. Roots certainly make more sense. We get reintegrate former provinces in the Age of Renaissance. And I actually don't think speed of integration is too strong a modifier because I think that, generally speaking, integrating, you're more gated by your subject approval because I think in the Age of Renaissance you do go for a little bit of a blob via subjects. And so I think that textures the rest of the game where you are integrating subjects and the minus 50 loyalty or relationships. I think it's loyalty, it might be relations, from integrating a subject, I think is going to gate you generally more than the speed of integration. So this would be an example of a advance that is irrelevant to the extent that you probably don't research it because the opportunity cost of researching it is too high. You give up researching something else in the regular tech tree that would otherwise be reasonable. We get Afghan nobility as well, noble levy size plus 50%, monthly army tradition. I really don't know how strong this is in terms of the monthly army tradition, but it's not a modifier you see very often, so would not be surprised if it was strong. It is in the Age of Discovery though, so of course opportunity cost. But the most interesting Delhi is its narrative content, because soon after the game starts, a situation will pop. The fall of Delhi, which of course, not ideal, is it? The turning of the wheels of power had once been favorable to us. Our predecessors, the Khalji, fell to the might of our Tughlaq dynasty in 1320. Since then, vast swaths in the lands of India have fallen to our might. However, as time moves on, we have lost the favor of our people. Those we once bestowed graces and governorships on now have become snakes in the grass, biding their time and deciphering the tale of our destruction. Ahead lies a turbulent and dangerous path. The survival of our great sultanate hangs in the balance between destruction and utter domination. A storm is covering. Is that our domination? Or are we dominating? Utterly. Okay. Comment below. We will weather the storm. We will weather the storm. We get the fall of Delhi situation may commence soon. During the turbulent time, we will face great rebellions across our lands. Our neighbors and subjects may take up the sword, and so this is where our neighbors contributing to it, where the diplomatic reputation is useful, especially because they're all different faiths, so they will have some base antagonism towards you. Against us, should our authority not recover in time on the interior, our scheming nobility threatens to overthrow our unstable rule. Should the share of power of our foes grow to more than 50%, we may fall to the dissolution of the Delhi disaster. Now, I'm not sure what share of power exactly refers to. If it refers to just kind of the normal share of power via the estate situation, the nobility starts with 40%, so that's a little bit spooky, and you probably want to dilute their power. That feels close. Maybe it isn't, but maybe it is, which brings us to the darkest hour. Alas, years of decay, mismanagement, and the overextension of our royal power have led to this moment. Inadvertently, and with the dark desires, those who wish to prey on our lands have stepped forth from the shadows and proclaimed their intentions. Womp womp. The next few decades will surely be filled with peril, as only our faith and prowess will see us through. Certainly we won't see our way through wearing sunglasses at night, being unable to read from a computer screen. Nevertheless, we are a proud people whose legacy is conquest of vast domain, one which our history has likely never seen. We will not perish without a fight. Conquest of a vast domain, one in which our history has never seen. I feel like Genghis Khan definitely conquered his way through almost all of the Middle East. So I think this is a selective memory in terms of our history saying something, and Genghis, kind of did his thing. But everyone likes to gloss over what Genghis did to their predecessors. Shout out to Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan has like one of the most metal quotes ever. He's just like, he says to the people, he's like, know that you have sinned. Or he's like, I know that you have sinned. Had you not sinned. I know this because had you not sinned, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you. And you're just like, Jesus. And then he's like, that's who sent me. Okay. The worst is yet to come, which of course is not ideal. Some of our neighbors and subjects have chosen to take up arms against us. Should we defeat them or succeed in protecting our sovereignty, this will greatly help us in surviving this calamity. And here we have minus 50 liberty desire. So knowing going into this, you're going to hit this. Probably don't integrate any of your subjects at the start. We have the fall of Delhi, and then the fall of Delhi. I think that this is maybe just a UI bug, because this seems in a weird spot. Last we read through it, and we of course read through it twice, because we were accidentally playing copyrighted music in the background the first time. A century of overextension and playing copyright music and a crumbling central authority have hurt the rule and reputation of the once mighty Delhi. Beyond their borders and are vultures and enemies waiting to strike at any moment. The great Sultanate of their forefathers will be brought to its knees in but an instant lest they succeed. In but an instant lest. I think I don't like that in terms of prose. Or I really like it. I'm actually not sure. They succeed in safeguarding their people from internal and external threats. Okay. And then here we have, this is Delhi's share of power. They will be victorious if it reaches 100% before the dissolution of Delhi disaster commences. And it seems like situation, I don't know. It seems repetitive, whatever is going on with this UI thing. But we see the share of power. This is the measure of strength of a particular opposing side. During the fall of Delhi situation, Delhi can increase it through the following means. And so this actually is not the estate power situation. We have situation actions, events, special peace treaties, and diplomatic support from other countries. Hence, us having actual diplomatic reputation being useful. You probably aren't going to want to expand too much into your Hindu/Indian neighbors with the fall of Delhi being an event that you have in mind, even if you have a sort of holy war CB because you're Muslim and you're fighting non-Muslims. Or this was our experience with Mali. We could really just deck anyone who wasn't a Muslim. But opposers can increase theirs through offensive wars and victories against Delhi. We do see some of the actions we have available to us: send envoys, appoint governors, demand tribute, appease the nobles, strengthen neighbor relations. And we have opposers' interference. So when the situation is active, several events may trigger, which may influence the share of power situation. Our legendary conquests across India have amassed a great number of dharmic subjects and our enemies, notably the Dhimmi, who we don't represent in terms of our screenshots. Our administration has stretched far beyond its capabilities, resulting in our border territories being virtually independent and outside of our control. At the same time, there it is, back to the control and far-flung empire thing. That's how they collapse in on themselves. At the same time, those who seek to oppose us and instigate our fall have begun working in the shadows, plotting our demise. We see unfortunate, which, yeah, it is unfortunate. We gain opposition. Opposers interfere forever. That sucks. And the event will last until the end of this situation and opposers' interference. This is... I know the numbers look small, but it's almost certainly a scaling modifier that's basically at 0 because the event just popped. Minus the state satisfaction equilibrium. As we decrease in satisfaction, we approach... the way that rebels work is there's a threshold. If you pass the threshold in terms of bad satisfaction, negative satisfaction, the rebels start brewing, and funds start going to fund the rebels, and the rebels start to gain momentum. So it's about crossing a threshold. Estate satisfaction, remember, when we talked about peasant satisfaction, it will decrease the satisfaction of everywhere. And I don't know how big this modifier scales up to. It could scale up to minus 20%. And when you stack that on top of us having everyone be the wrong culture because our culture is the best, and everyone be the wrong religion because we have the best religion, what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of pressure on our satisfaction writ large. And one of the solutions to this is giving the peasants a whole lot of, not estates. We give them privileges, which increases the equilibrium satisfaction and helps to push you away from this threshold. And so I generally think that this is the approach that you kind of do with everyone and is generally pretty strong, and it should probably in some way be nerfed. I think that probably the estate or the satisfaction of location should actually be weighted by estate, because I think the peasants are overrepresented in that regard. But continuing on, we have loyalty of subjects, minus, and monthly rebel growth. So not only will it push you towards the satisfaction, it will also, if they get across that threshold, make the rebels brew a little bit faster. Sorry for adjusting my hair, which is definitely natural. This might end up being the same situation, the situation some months after it starts, if the player is not careful enough. We see a lot of red on the map. We know in our, reptilian brain, that that's a bad sign. The situation may last for years, even decades, creating a very challenging gameplay for Delhi, with even more events popping up. We have the mad Sultanate of Delhi. I would be mad too if my empire was falling apart, but with the rule of Sultan Muhammad, last name we're not going to pronounce, raging on, his actions descend into madness even more. More unjust laws are passed, more arbitrary changes are made, campaigns are launched, and without any sort of planning, whilst we do love it anytime someone uses the word whilst, we just start foaming at the mouth, we go feral. This is nothing uncommon for his rule. It is certainly an issue that will spiral out of control as long as Sultanate or Sultan Muhammad, we're not going to pronounce, stays on the throne. We see, by Allah, this must stop. Indeed, it needs to. As long as he's on the throne, bad will happen. So I guess we put him in charge of an army or something. We see the rise of the Habshi, which is going to be an event related to slavery, which we're going to see a lot of in this game. Not only is it really strong, it do be a vibe, yeah. It is true that no person can be the master of their fate throughout their life. This is even more evident for those whose harsh luck has thrown them into slavery. Would we really... Are we going to blame luck and not the slavers? Yep, they actually just flipped a coin. Just kidding. However, unlike the most slaves from East Africa, the Habshi are slowly gaining influence within the court. Literate in the matters, by the way, literature makes them add to rebel chance, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And so slave literacy is a bad modifier as far as I know, although literacy overall increases research speed, so maybe it's tolerable for the research speed that you get as a general literacy modifier. In matters of administration and militarily gifted, they are slowly becoming an integral part of our malikdom. An exemplary man of such origin by the name of Adir Kahafo has recently appeared, ready to serve us loyally. I don't know if I would trust someone who I've enslaved, but okay. We get Habshi advisors, which is going to be a dhimmi privilege. I know what you guys are saying. Who are the dhimmi? We didn't see them in the screenshot, and what I'm going to say is we're not going to evaluate this at all. We're just not going to concern ourselves with it. It's not going to be a thing. We'll just continue on. The end requirements of the situation are the following with different possibilities. We do see gets at least 100 share of the power. Opposers have 100% share of power. Has decided to cede territories in the event our authority crumbles. Incidentally, interestingly about Yuan is you can't release any subjects at game start, and I would not be surprised if Delhi couldn't release any subjects, because releasing subjects might be a way to ease the pressure on yourself, especially the ones on the periphery of your empire. We get the dissolution of Delhi disaster started, and Delhi does not exist. One of the is a disaster that may trigger to Delhi, making the situation even worse. Dissolution of Delhi, so that's worse than before. Our opposition has at least 95% of the power during the fall of Delhi situation, so this will trigger it, and then we have a greater than or equal to 75 stab / legitimacy will end it, as far as I can tell, and we get the dissolution of Delhi event. Decades of sullen attempts to maintain the vast domain of our once great sultanate have produced no fruit. The constant scheming of our hostile neighbors and their incessant attempts at undermining our authority and undoing our prestigious conquests have finally come to fruition. Or is that fruition? Sorry, my brain, I saw fruit, I was thinking fruit, we saw fruit, and I wanted it to be fruition, but it's fruition. Okay. Yeah, the people have lost faith in the guidance of Sultan Muhammad, resulting in revolts, famines, and even open hostilities. Do famines really driven by faith? Okay. Between settlements under our banner, the situation could not be more dire, and our advisors are swiftly running out of suggestions for the many problems we are facing. We get "This is not good," which we do love titles like that because it's not good, because we get minus 20 stab, minus 10 legitimacy. The estate satisfaction of all our estates will be reduced by 20%, which again is going to be reducing our satisfaction globally at locations, which brings us closer to a rebel threshold where they will start taking up and receiving funds that are going to be scale with the inverse of our control. So we could get rid of rebels by releasing subjects if this is possible, right? And especially in places where we have low control, because those places will develop more quickly the rebels. We get the dissolution of Delhi, I guess, on top of this, which is going to be the Malikdom of Delhi gets estate satisfaction equilibrium, again driving down satisfaction everywhere. Stability investment minus 0.1. It does, I think positive stab gives a small amount of estate satisfaction equilibrium, so it's still even attacking the same thing. And monthly rebel growth, so they make it easier for rebels to start ticking, and then they make the ticking faster. Tick tock, tick tock. While this disaster is active, some historical revolters may appear: the Bahmanis, the Malwa, the Gujarat, or the Jaunpur. The players can choose to either keep playing as Delhi or start playing as one of them. I really do love that this option is available in a lot of places. It's available when you create a colonial subject, you can swap to them. It's available as Yuan. When Ming pops, you can swap to Ming. Ming might be an easier start overall than Yuan. Trying to keep everything together, just swap to Ming, and you get a nice big battle at the very start, which is interesting, I suppose. But we do generally love that as kind of a feature that is in place. With the plagues that have happened in the city of Delhi, we were forced to move the capital to Sargodwari, hoping to avoid death of anyone important in the Sultanate, probably not the Damini, because we keep them out of everything categorically, or the Dhimmi. With such plagues past us now, we should be making plans to restore this old capital and migrate court there. Delhi kind of geographically seems like it's maybe not the best place for a capital, just because it's not really at the middle of everything, but maybe it's along rivers, this type of thing. Or maybe this is just where we have enough buildings such that it's going to be good for getting control there. We get the establishment of Gulaman-e-Firuz Sahi. Pretty sure we butchered that, but we do have the abundance of slaves in Delhi, and the Tughlaq dynasty being on the throne. Malik Muhammad has been making plans of creating a standing army and a small and elite force of slaves named the Gulaman-e-Firuz Sahi. I have to be just butchering that. They are meant to guard the Malik from any danger. We get a slave army as a government reform, and Keeley has this +1 government reform. So this is free on the slots. Max literacy for slaves, we kind of think this is a bad modifier, but in exchange, we also kind of think character life expectancy is maybe a bad modifier. It only applies to characters, not to population, so it doesn't increase your pop or decrease your pop growth. But the monthly progress towards quality, maybe that is worth the literacy for slaves. But the literacy for slaves, again, will drive up your national literacy slightly, to the extent it also is going to be causing problems, I think. Actually, maybe it's not proportionate. Maybe the unrest you get from slaves is too much unless the slave population is huge, in which case the max literacy is going to be good. Because there's two pressures. There's slaves having literacy, it stirs rebellion, and then there's literacy for slaves raises average literacy. So if you have enough slaves, I guess this is probably good from that perspective, but then you're probably having a lot of unrest as well. The rural settlement of Hisar has caught the attention of Malik Muhammad. His eyes admire the palace, seeing it both as the perfect spot for one of his personal projects, serving the role of both palace and fort. Hisar-e-Firuja is planned to feature it all, bolstering Yeah, bolstering 5 gates. It's really hard to read sunglasses on computer screen. Emirati stables, a mosque for any good Muslim to pray, and the Emirati palace itself. And much, much more. No, sorry, much more. Not much, much more. Just one much. But that's all for today. This will be the schedule for a week. Now, we don't get the happy salutation at the end, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, but technically I think we got 2 happy salutations at the start. So I guess that's like a happy salutation sandwich. We just decided to have both slices of bread on the top. But okay, we do have another week for us, and this is maybe some sort of hint, right? If they are really ramping up... So whatever happens, they're going to want the hype to be maximal on release day, right? If they are ramping up the degree to which they're putting out stuff, that's probably a good sign because they're trying to gain speed, right? Gain hype speed, and they don't want to right drop off. So this implies that we're getting there in some sort of way, or not. Or I'm overthinking this. But Monday we have Tinto Maps feedback about India. Tuesday we will have Tinto Flavour about Sweden, inspired or hosted by Johan. Wednesday we will have Tinto Talks about unit graphics hosted by St. Dave. And then Thursday we will have behind the scenes video. And then Friday, of course, we will have Flavor Friday. Now, that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. If you have some flavor you particularly like, comment down below. And I don't just mean in-game. If there's something that tastes really good and you want us to know, let us know. We do have, of course, Flavour spelled with a U, which, okay, Pavi is almost certainly using the British spelling or the English spelling, which does feature a bunch of unnecessary U's. But I think if you're an American, you should also spell Flavour with a U, because that's just a little bit of extra spice. Also Glamour, because it's stylish. But other than that, YouTube algorithm stuff, you know, if you feel like it. And other than that, you guys have a Flavor Friday.